Hi, I'm Melody. Welcome to my channel Making Melody Crafts, and welcome back to our alphabet series. Today we're going to be learning the basics of cross-stitch basics. Cross-stitch for beginners, cross-stitch fun, cross-stitch madness, cross-stitch, 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 woo, cross-stitch! So hit that subscribe button and we'll get started. Alright, we're down at the craft table. And now the first thing that we're going to talk about is the fabric for cross stitch. It's called Ada, and it's a series of, intersecting lines, some vertical and some horizontal. And this brand is called Charles Craft. Wow, I don't know if you can hear that, but there is a huge thunderstorm outside right now, but we're just going to keep filming. So again, this is Charles Craft fabric. And it comes sometimes in a tube. This one is also kind of rolled. So they come in different colors. These two are oatmeal. They're made by the same manufacturer, just a little bit different. It also comes like this in, flat, in like an envelope. This is just a project that I'm working on right now. So this edge is your finished edge. Can you see that well? That is a finished edge where it's not going to fray. This side, it will continually do that where it's going to just come off of there. And obviously you don't want lots of that coming off because it can get too close to your design, as has kind of happened here in this project. So in order to fix that, this is what you do. You can just tape the edges, and I used masking tape. You want to have that, pretty straight. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want that to be pretty straight on there. It'll make it easier for you. The fabric is quite large because some of the designs are very large too. Also, the fabric comes in 4 different sizes. There's 11 count, 14 count, 18 count, and linen. I have never cross-stitched on linen, but it does create a beautiful picture, photograph quality piece when you're done. So it is absolutely gorgeous. Lots of eye strain there if you're working with linen. The 14 count to me is a happy medium, so I just prefer the 14 count, and this was stitched on 14 count, and I'm not done with this, but this is just a little one. To hoop or not to hoop? That is the question. So I can't find right now one of my regular hoops, but this hoop here I've made into a craft project, but there's plastic hoops, there's wooden hoops, but the way it works is there's 2 rings. A hoop has 2 rings. This has like a little screw that goes in here to hold it together, to hold your fabric, taut. And you take the bottom piece, put it under your fabric. So in this case, we would go like that, put it under there, and these come in many different diameters, many different, sizes. Then your top one would push down over there. So that's what I've done here. So this fabric is trapped in between this outer circle and inner circle of this hoop. And then you push down, you tighten it, and it will hold it perfectly still. I just prefer not to use them. I find them very limiting and frustrating, and you always have to move it and make sure the fabric is taut. I just do it this way. I keep my thumb and forefinger on the top, pull taut, and hold on the back. And I just like that. Maybe one day I'll change my mind, but for now, that's how I like to do that. So thumb and forefinger on the top, other fingers on the bottom. I hold it taut. I'm left-handed, and like that. So, all right, that's enough on fabric. Let's go on to the thread. So for cross stitch, there is a specific type of thread. It's called a floss, and this is a skein. When you purchase it, that's called a skein of floss. It's not very expensive. And they all have different names and colors, obviously, and there's a number on there, and that matters. You'll want to keep track of that. What I do is, once I take the little labels off that comes with it, like that, and they're not glued on or anything, they come off quite easily. Then I wrap it around one of these, plastic bobbins. I love wearing a thumb sweater to show you guys things. It's so convenient. And when I do that, it looks like this. So the DMC, stands for the manufacturer, and then there's the number. So when this runs out and I buy a new one, I wrap it around there, and then I store it. And that's how I like to do it. 6 strands of floss come on here. So this piece right here, here is 2 strands. That is 2 strands of fabric there, or of thread there, of embroidery floss. For most cross stitch, you only need 2. So now I'm just going to pull until I get how much I want. 18 inches is a good amount of thread to work with. So you want about 18 inches of that. So that is 2 strands of floss are right there. There you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. It doesn't have to be exactly 18 inches. So if you like to work with a little more, that's fine. A little less, that's okay too. You just have to, thread your needle more often. This is a little shorter than 18 inches, but that's okay for examples. I'm just gonna leave it at that. So this little needle I've just got in here because this is a magnet. It's just kind of a convenient way that I like to store it. So the needles for cross stitch, there's 2 things that are different about them. They have a blunt tip, so it's not very sharp. The eye of the needle is also larger because you're putting more thread through there. There's different type of stitches in cross stitch, but we're just going to stick with the basics today. If your threads aren't, are a little bit frayed on the end, go ahead and use some sharp scissors and cut that so that you can easily thread your needle. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, so that's through there now. With cross stitch floss, you don't tie it. Well, some do. I don't. I don't recommend tying it. You need to leave it loose like that so there won't be a knot. So you want to go over about, a third of whatever the length is of your thread. So maybe this is about 4 or 5 inches here. It doesn't matter, just enough so that when you pull it through the fabric, it doesn't come out. All right, let's start with our first stitch. So enough talk, I think you've got some of the basics down. If you do have any issues with threading a needle, go ahead and use a needle threader. All right, so now we've got our thread ready. I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch on this project down here, just for example's sake. I'm gonna stand up. There we go, you should be able to see well now. So there's 2 different ways to do the basic stitch in cross stitch, which is the literal X. You can go bottom left to top right, and then bottom right to top left. I'll go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So every time you see an intersection of that fabric, 1 stitch can go there. So the lines that are going horizontal and vertical, that the intersection is where the stitch goes. So I'll just show you, we'll just get started. We're going to go up here, pull it through slowly. As you see the end coming, be ready. Leave about, an inch, maybe a little more, but I think an inch is pretty good. That's what I like. Now just hold that there with your finger, because remember, there's no knot there, right? So if we did bottom left to top right, and that's my favorite, I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed or what, but, and now I'm also doing this upside down, so I really need to think here for you. Okay, so bottom left to top right, we're gonna go right into here. Get a little closer for you. Okay, so we're gonna go right in there. And now I'm gonna come down. This is gonna be one side of our X. So that there is one side of the X. Now, since we did bottom left to top right, now we want to go bottom right to top left. So remember, you're making an X, right? So we were first in that other spot, and now we're, right next to it. Let's get in a little closer. There we go. So that's what we've got now. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. As this comes through, you want to make sure that the amount of thread hanging over is trapped under your next stitch, because that's how it will be held down since there's not a knot. Ooh, just like that. All right, so now we've got the bottom right, we're coming up to the top left. So here's the top left, and I'm going to pull down through here. as I do that, I don't just hold the needle and pull it really fast because you know you might pull out the thread. Take your time, go a little bit slow. Cross stitch is a labor of love, but it is really nice when it's done. And then that is your basic cross stitch. We'll make another one and we'll do it right next to it. So again, we're going to do bottom left because here's an intersection of fabric. That's where my stitch is going to go. I'm going to pull through. I'm going to trap the end again because there isn't enough there. You know, one stitch can hold the end, but it's better if it's held down by, you know, more than one stitch. And there we go. So that's trapped under another one. And when you pull it, you want it to be taut, but not, you know, super tight. So now we're going up to the top right. Pull that through. And again, I'm on the back of there now, and we're going to go bottom right to top left. Okay, so now we're going to come out here, holding the fabric. I like to have my thumb and forefinger around the needle, my middle finger and ring finger around the thread here, and then I just use my pinky to gently get that thread to come through. And now up here to the top left. Again, I'm working backwards, so I'm working upside down. So that's what those first two stitches look like. So those are two X's there. That's what cross stitch is. That's the cross part of it. So when you finish, you don't tie a knot here like you usually would in sewing. You are going to loop it under stitches you've already done. So go back under some of these stitches on the back. You don't go under the fabric itself. Don't get your needle into the fabric itself, but just go under the stitches you've already done. Pull it through, just a little taut. Don't pull really hard, just a little bit. And then trim off the end. When you trim off the end, you know, you can leave it really close and cut right up next to where you were working. I like to leave just a little bit there. I think is a little bit of security that it's not going to come out. So yeah, so that is how that is. And then in this series, we're gonna have more, I'll have more videos for you about cross stitch. All right, so those are the basics of cross stitch. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you had some fun, if you learned something, please subscribe. That would help me out so much. I'd really, really appreciate it. I am trying to grow my subscribers, and I'll catch you later.